Hey, in my Turbulence podcast, I'm lucky to have Danielle Lewis. How are you today, Danielle?
I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. Danielle is a person I've wanted to speak to for a long time. She's an airline pilot, which I think is the most business traveler that I could speak to. What's kind of your background, Danielle, as far as flying?
I went into the Air Force right out of high school, and then I enlisted in the Air Force, and I went to college at night and worked on my flying and ratings. Got out, finished college, and then went back into the Air Force and went to Air Force pilot training. And I eventually did the active duty Air Force, Air Guard, and Air Reserve, and then retired 3 years ago. Upon my initial retirement, I went and worked in Africa, the United Nations, flying the same thing I flew in the Air Force. I flew C-130 most of my Air Force career, and flew that in the United Nations in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, working for the World Food Program. And then that was post 9/11. It was great. I was got hired by a company out of Ireland, like a staffing company for pilots, to go work for a South African company. So I thought I was going to South Africa. Honestly, thought I'd be working and living in South Africa, doing a month on, month off. Living in Chicago at the time, loved Chicago. And I went to Belgium to meet the South Africans to do a check ride in this C-130 was the airplane I flew, so a civilian version of C-130, to only discover they thought I was a man, because in my passport picture, my hair was pulled back, and they thought it was Daniel instead of Danielle.
Oh, my God, that's awesome.
So I go to Brussels to do my check ride and then go on to South Africa to do my initial training, just like an airline would here, to understand their rules. And they're like, okay, we're going to go to Panama, and you're going to fly for a contract in Panama for a few months to get you checked out. And then you're going to go to Tanzania, and you're going to live there and fly in the Congo. And, well, it's the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So you're going to fly into the Democratic Republic of the Congo in the Congo. I'm like, that's not what I signed up for. But it was great. It was wonderful. It was an experience of a lifetime. I fell in love with Africa, and I have great stories. I got bit by a zebra once, headed to breakfast. I mean,
everyone thinks they're friendly, but they're not super friendly.
No, they're not. And they would take a dump on my front porch every morning. I'd have to step over zebra droppings on my way to breakfast. And the monkeys would true story, monkeys would steal bananas. So, yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you both parties got something they weren't expecting. They got a female, and you got the Congo.
Right. Yeah. It was. But I wouldn't change it. I actually loved that area. So it was great. And then eventually, I was still in the reserves. I did my last tour in Afghanistan, and I got a call from an airline in North America, a major airline, to come work for them. And it was the first of all the hiring waves after the 9/11 pilots.
Right.
Everybody was laid off after 9/11. So I was ecstatic. So the Africa and I parted ways, and I've been with that company now for almost 10 years. So 10 years at a major airline in North America, and hope to be there for another 20 plus.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm the same way with my job. It's like I spent a couple of years bouncing around different companies, and I've been with this company for just over 10 years. Well, no, it'll be 10 years next month. So I'm ecstatic. It's like I'm good.
It's a great feeling. Yeah, it's good to be in one job and not going to the Congo when you think you're going to South Africa.
I can't even imagine like showing up and them going, "Oh, you're not Daniel."
Oh, it was. I think the check ride went fine. I mean, obviously, I was flying an airplane that I was there to teach eventually, and I was flying an airplane that I'd flown in the Air Force and was very comfortable in it. And I think it took them a minute to realize that I was actually flying the airplane. I actually had someone tell me to shut up and look pretty and do the paperwork. So it was definitely a different culture. I grew to love everybody there. It was a wonderful experience. But I was not welcome with open arms at first.
Well, that'd be nice when you could do both. You could fly and shut up and do paperwork.
Yeah, and look pretty.
Yeah.
And look pretty. All of that. I had to do all of that.
That's I can't even wrap my head around that. I don't know people that talk like that.
Well, it's a different culture, different time. But again, they all warmed up to me in time, and it ended up being a wonderful experience. But yes, it was definitely eye-opening. I was young. I was 28 years old when I was over there. Had no idea what I was getting into. and I did not have the protection of the military. So it was a totally different experience than anything I'd ever done.
What's the biggest difference? You flew C-130s in both places, right?
Yes, different versions.
The equivalent,
yes.
yeah. What's the biggest difference between flying the military version of the C-130 versus the private? And then, obviously having the rules of the Air Force versus the rules of a private company.
That's actually a great question. So I went to, like I said, they sent me to Lima, Peru to fly for a private contract, oil contract there in the Amazon, bounce around these grass strips. And we would go in and fly around in the jungle, which is very similar to the kind of flying that a C-130 is made to do, like in Afghanistan or in South America. It's kind of our mission is short field, unimproved field landings. So we did a lot of that in Africa and in Peru. And on my checkout, our initial, you're getting checked out by someone, a check airman or, a management pilot there at the airline. We come back to Lima, which is a major international airport, and just doing a basic return to land and be done for the day. And I did, in the Air Force, we always do kind of these quote-unquote tactical arrivals where you come in over the airport and bank the airplane up and come real fast and, the stuff that looks cool in air shows, but there is a tactical advantage of that. And so I did that kind of arrival in a civilian airplane. Now, there's no passengers in the back. It was still the same kind of cargo flying or you're transporting people. But it was just us and the crew. And I learned South African words and Afrikaans words that won't repeat on your podcast. But I learned a whole new language. So, he looked at me and asked what was I doing. So, so it was totally different. Whereas you fly on an airline now and the airplane is stabilized and it's for passenger comfort. That's how they prefer I fly it for a civilian carrier as well. And I learned quickly. My learning curve was quick there.
That's pretty awesome, though. I could just see them go, what the?
Yeah, it was a whole language. Everybody was Afrikaans in the airplane. So I knew something was wrong quickly. I just didn't know what. I had literally no clue what I did until we shut down and I got an earful. But I learned. Never did that again.
You're like, no big deal.
I thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun, but they did not.
Out of all the places you've lived in with your flying, what's the best place you've ever lived in so far?
I get asked that question a lot. So I have my favorites to travel to and live in. I spent 2 years flying with the Puerto Rico Air National Guard. So flying out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, living right there on the beach in San Juan and doing mostly Central South America stuff, embassy support, a lot of stuff in the islands, Guantanamo Bay support, drug stuff down in South America. It was great. That was probably the most fun I had. I was in my 20s. It was right before I went to Africa.
Yeah.
I had a great time. I loved the culture. I love the Latin America culture. Living on the beach was fantastic. I grew a love for poker. I lived above a casino, so that was convenient. I tried to dance. I had no dancing ability, but I had a great time there. But I would not want to live there again. So it was the best 2 years of my life. I felt great then, but that was my probably favorite living. Spent a lot of time in Europe. Love Europe. Have no desire to live there. Anywhere in Europe. It was too first world. I find that I really kind of migrated to, I like Africa a lot. Africa was a favorite. So now I like Atlanta, Georgia. It's weather.
Atlanta, Chicago.
Yeah, so I love Chicago, and never in my wildest dreams thought I would not go back to Chicago when I left to relocate for a job in Atlanta. And I love Atlanta. I could see some temporary relocations, but I think this will be home for the remainder of my career.
I don't hear a lot of good things about the Atlanta airport, though.
What's the busiest in the world?
From a flyer.
So from a pilot standpoint, and I've been based in Atlanta for a long time, so I'm very comfortable with it. I think it's one of the easiest operating airports. It's very, you kind of know what to expect, and this is something you don't see as a passenger, but flying a lot of times, Denver, for example, you never know what to expect going in there. The airports change, the runways change, the weather changes. They don't have a predictable flow, and it just makes more work. But, I like easy now. I've had a lot of excitement in my career. I like easy. And Atlanta to me is very predictable. I know, but I also am very comfortable. But I have to be sensitive to that. I see passengers all the time from all over the world coming in who are their mind is just blown when they walk into the Atlanta airport. But for me, it's an easy, very easy, predictable airport to operate in and out of.
Yeah, I mean, from a standpoint of cars, rental cars, luggage, I hear a lot of people not super stoked with flying. Like, they'll avoid Atlanta.
I heard the same thing, and it is. I think the airport sits on 2, maybe 3 counties, so it's a large, massive airport that's spread out. So yeah, when you start adding all that in, it's a lot of work.
See, for me, like I have friends that hate LAX, hate it, and that's my home base. So literally, like I fly an airline in Terminal 1. I go to it. My wife knows exactly where to drop me off in the short-term parking. She goes through the middle section, and she's back out within 5 minutes. So we got to figure it out as a passenger. But I have friends that go, oh, my God, I would never fly into LAX if I don't have to. I'm like, really? I have no problem with it.
Yeah, and that's the key. Like, even Atlanta, there's people I'll meet in the community, non-aviation, and I'll tell them, the key for Atlanta, for instance, they have this brand new, beautiful international terminal. The lines, there's never a security line on that side. So take your Uber or Lyft or whatever you're taking, someone dropping you off, and go to the international side, and you'll be through security in 20 minutes versus hours. I mean, I go to the other side of the airport and see people, hundreds, thousands of people lined up to get in at all hours of the day. So there are you got to learn your airport, and every airport's different. I don't know them all the tricks because I don't go through the same process as passengers. But Atlanta, I think I figured out finally.
Well, I tell you, TSA Pre is a godsend for LAX. I think it's like $75 a year or something, $45. It's cheap. And if you fly more than a couple times a year, it saves me hours at LAX.
Well, and again, we have a whole system that's different. So we don't really go through the lines. It's occasionally we'll get random checked and have to go through that, but we have different set of rules. Now, we'll give you a little insight. There's something called My Mobile Passport. And if you don't have global entry, which I actually don't, I fly internationally, just not a lot. I do 20, 30 times a year, but not a whole lot like a pilot that would fly a long haul, every trip. And I use mobile entry. I don't even do the global entry. I'm too lazy to go down and make the appointment. And I discovered Mobile Passport, and it's free. And you just take a picture of yourself, enter your passport information, and you get another line. And most airports take it. That's another way to get around. It's an app called, I believe it's My Mobile Passport or Mobile Passport. Yeah, it's free. There's a minimal fee if you just want to keep your data stored, but there's no reason to pay it. It's a free app, and that's actually what me and most of the flight attendants I find are using now who don't have global entry or whose global entry is expired.
Yeah, because I have one friend that flies down to Mexico for work, and he uses global entry, and he goes, it's as good as TSA Pre. He goes, I would never fly down to Mexico without it now. Because so there, and I just came
back from Mexico City and used it on the way back in. I obviously can't use it out, and it was easy as can be coming through Houston, so I had no problems at all. That's
awesome. I'm definitely gonna make a little side note on my website and everything for that one. I was like, see, and you said you weren't going to be interesting. Come on now.
There you go. That's the tip that I have for the average passenger.
Yeah, but I mean, like I tell people all the time about TSA Pre. And so I'm like, because I fly to Denver 4 times a year. That's where my company is based out of. And so we do our sales meetings there. And I don't know if you've ever been to the main. They have the 2 sides where you can check in.
Yeah, we go to a thing called known crew members. I'm not familiar.
And there could be 600 people in line. And you're like, I'm going to go into TSA Pre, and there's 5 people or 10 people. And you're like, okay, I'm going to go in that line.
Well, that's how the international terminal is at Atlanta. So everybody listening that goes through Atlanta, always go to the international. You have to have a boarding pass because not all airlines you can print on that side. But if you have a boarding pass on your phone, print it out and go to the international side. But that's how it is. There's never a line.
See?
And you could get to all the terminals in Atlanta from either side, so that it doesn't matter who you're flying, where you're going, and you could get to where you need to be from that side.
So here's my question to you: is you go from C-130s in the Air Force? Is that right? Air Force?
Correct. Yes.
And then C-130 equivalent in Africa to
yes.
passenger planes in the United States. What's
Boring.
What's the biggest change?
It was boring, and I love it. Boring's relative, right? It's no one's shooting at you, and in all the other jobs, people were, even in the Africa job, people were shooting at you, or people were under distress. A lot of times it's humanitarian aid stuff, so that's not happening anymore, which I appreciate. You know, the worst thing that happens now is you may get lasered. Someone may try to laser as a thing, but that's very rare. But yeah, no, it's boring. It's predictable. I know when I'm going to be home. And the best thing for me was when I'm off work, I'm off. I don't know if there's many jobs that exist like this, and definitely the military was not this way. When I get done with the trip,
mine's not that way.
No, I don't. Yeah, when I get done with a trip, no one's calling me at work to do paperwork, to have meetings. Nothing's happening, and I kind of have complete control of my life. I can work as little or as much as I want to. I get, I'm an hourly union employee now, so it's a totally different lifestyle. In a lot of ways, it is boring. But it gives me the ability to have a real life and a real kind of work-life balance for the first time in my career.
Well, I mean, you put in 20 years in the Air Force. You did your part.
Thank you. I think so.
The number that amazed me the most was when you said that only 3% of commercial pilots are female.
Yeah, the number changes. It's gone as high as 8%, and I believe I'm at an airline that's just around 3.5%, 4% from my understanding. But it's low. Like, I have only flown. I feel like I might have flown with more women in the Air Force than I have in the civilian side. There were no women in Africa where I worked. I was the first woman they'd had, and their company started in the 70s. Since I've heard they've had one. So even globally, I think that's pretty common. So the airline industry, I've only flown. I can only think of 2, maybe 3 times, or 2 or 3 other women I have flown with. And it's been years. It's been years since I've been in the flight deck with another female.
Why do you think that is?
Oh, wow. I could offend a lot of people with that. I think there's a lot of reasons.
Let's not do that.
No, I won't do that. There's a lot of reasons. I think a lot of it is just the cultures are different throughout even our own country, throughout the world. The male gender role is definitely, the perceived male gender role is definitely part of it. For me, my mother, who I love and who's been a great supporter of me, but even when I told her, hey, I want to be an Air Force pilot, I want to do this, she flat out, and she regrets this now, says, you need to set your goals more realistically. So my path was a challenging path. There wasn't a war going on. It was pre-9/11. The Air Force had just cut down. To be a pilot in the Air Force, you have a science or engineering degree of a 3.8 GPA or better. Well, if you go to your science and engineering departments in a university, I imagine they're predominantly male even now. They were, I think I was the only one in my computer science program back then. I know nothing about programming, so don't ask me. But they checked these boxes. It was not something, it was kind of something I came upon around 18. I'm like, you know what, I want to go to the Air Force, go to college, get out, go be a pilot, go get back in. I had this whole plan, but I didn't know it till later. So it's if you do the military route, it takes most people kind of know this early on, and a lot of people, it's their fathers. Their fathers are pilots, so they wouldn't be pilots. In my entire career, I've never heard anyone say my mother was a pilot, a military pilot, or an airline pilot, and I wanted to follow my mother's footsteps. I've never once heard that. So I think a lot of it, we kind of migrate to people that look like us or that we can relate to, and so I think it's just that's a lot of it, and it's hard. I mean, I'm 42. I like to think I'm a relatively good catch, and I've never been married and had children. And it's hard. I think a lot of women probably start to pursue it and realize women, naturally want to have children and the family component, and this is not always conducive for it. And it scares a lot of men off. I've had a lot of great men in my life who are intimidated by my career.
Well, it's interesting because of my traveling career, when I got divorced and then in between, dating, a lot of women didn't like the fact that I'd be gone. I'm on the road about 100 days a year. And a lot of women didn't like that. They're like, hey, are you always going to be on the road? Or whether it's a trust factor, whether it's, just a relationship factor, it's something that I think all people that travel for work have to deal with. And I think being a woman, it's just an additional factor.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, everybody's preferences are different. I am in a very type A world and have to be kind of turn it on and turn it off, and compartmentalize a lot. I think men are naturally better at compartmentalizing than women. So having that balance is challenging. And so any man that's in my life needs to be a little more type A and kind of a stronger presence than me. And that's hard. So that kind of eliminates a lot of people. So no, it's the traveling. Early on, the traveling was bad. I mean, I was gone all the time in the military. 4 to 6 months at a time was incredibly common. And then everything was a move. Every few years, you're moving to progress your career. And that's challenging for anyone, male or female. And then now I have tons of free time. But now I'm later in my life, and I'm stable and kind of it's more predictable. But most people are married and have moved on, are kind of on in their life. So I find that now the people I have dated or been involved with kind of have their own career path and their own identity. So it doesn't interfere as much, but it's also a smaller pool of people as well.
Well, and that's just, like I said, I ran in the same issue. I think I was probably about 42 when I got divorced. So I was like your age now. And it was like, wow. I felt like all the good women were already married, But
exactly, yeah. There's plenty of unemployed opportunities out there. So, but that's not to each their own, right?
Yeah, I guess. But I met some great women, It was just like I said, it was tough, because for me, I had two daughters that were in high school at the time, and so when I came home from work, I had custody of them. So it was tough to date having, because I'm either on the road with no kids or I'm home with kids. So whoever I was going to date had to deal with that.
Right. And that's even now with me, like when I travel, I find that there's a lot of unknowns. It's still predictable, but there's still my schedule. I don't know it until the 20th, 15th to 20th, depending. There's things changing and moving of the month. So I can't guarantee you 3 months from now that I'm going to make your friend's surprise 40th birthday party or 50th birthday party. Yeah. So it takes a lot. It takes one that's patient and understanding. But then now with FaceTiming and you could really stay connected with someone if that's something that's important in that relationship. I find that a lot of people I work with, we go, our days are long on the road. I mean, it's common. Yesterday my day was 13 hours. The day before was 11 and a half. And I had 12 in the hotel. So I was actually working longer yesterday than I was actually sleeping and eating and showering and getting ready in the hotel. So days are long. Yeah. When I am gone, I'm gone. I'm checked out. There's nothing, most people go to work and they come home and eat dinner and wash the dishes and do laundry. And that's where it is a definite balance. When I am gone, I'm completely unavailable.
See, and that's the one thing this is why I love talking to other business travelers, because I'm the same way. Like, if I'm on the road for 3 days for a 3-day trip, I'm gone 24 hours a day, because I'm not coming home to my own house. I'm not eating the food I want to eat, necessarily in my house, and doing the things. And, if I'm in a hotel room, that's not necessarily where I want to be, but that's where I am. So
absolutely. Yeah.
People are like, oh, cause for me, like I always tell people I drive for a living and I do meetings in between. And,
right.
Because like for you, like if you fly from Atlanta to Chicago, that's what maybe an hour and a half flight.
Yeah, hour and a half, 2 hours from gate to gate, depending what's going on. Yeah.
But that's a full, that's what 5 or 6 hours involved in that.
Well, and it's not. That's like yesterday. I flew from Houston to LA to Vegas to Atlanta. So I kind of bounced all over the country, and I had about an hour and a half sit before the plane even showed up in LA. So that was my opportunity to eat. So that's a different from the average business travelers. I'm motivated by food on the road. Where can I get good food? Where can I get healthy food? What airports have what? What airports close? If it's early in the morning, nothing's open. So my motivations are quite different than probably the average business traveler. But I've hacked the food options and kind of how to eat healthy, even in challenging situations. I've kind of figured out a pseudo formula for that.
Well, Terminal 1 in LA, they redid it, and they've got new restaurants. Now, do you go outside? If you have an hour and a half, do you go, hey, I'm going to go to a restaurant off the
Off the airport?
Yeah.
No, it's an
Okay.
hour and a half. I mean, that's an hour and a half is a long time because usually the plane's there. But if the plane's not there and you truly have an hour and a half away, no, I will switch terminals though because every terminal is different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So one major airline in Terminal 1A is totally different than the other airlines that are in Terminal B or C or whatever. So I'll switch like in an airport like Atlanta or in LA. LA has the new fancy international terminal, which may be the Terminal 1 you're talking about. I'm not sure the numbers. I'll go over there and sit down and have a hot meal, but that is so rare. I mean, that's probably once every 2 months that I have the time to sit down, leave a terminal and have a hot meal. Because when I come back through security, it's real easy and quick for me.
That's what I thought,
yeah. But no, I will leave and go to their terminals. And I encourage all business travelers to do that. If I run into someone, especially like in Atlanta, where I know the airport and it's such a big terminal and you could bounce around without going through security, there's great food opportunities, or I like some of the bookstores in some of the airports. There's great ways to kill time and all throughout. And then some terminals have free Wi-Fi and others don't. Some have live music.
Yeah, like I like Nashville. Phoenix, you can bounce around pretty easily.
Yeah, you can in Phoenix. Nashville's nice. Yeah, Nashville has a lot of options. They have live music as well.
Yeah.
So, little things like that.
And then, Dallas, Love Field is different than the big terminal, and same thing in Chicago.
Yeah, totally different. Yeah, Chicago Midway versus Chicago O'Hare, night and day difference.
Yeah, I mean Midway's dinky. It's like Love. Love's nice, but it's not the big boy.
Right. It's not DFW, the big size.
But like Love, if people ever fly into Love, that's where JFK flew in and out of, and they have the little memorial stuff going on inside the terminal there for that. That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah, and they've redone that terminal over the years. It's nice, and it has a Whataburger in it. That totally throws out my healthy eating. That's pretty exciting. I mean, I imagine it's all the people on the West Coast who love the In-N-Out burgers. If there's an In-N-Out burger in an airport or Chick-fil-A, yeah. So Whataburger is pretty exciting in the Love Field Airport. No, I personally like the smaller airports, like the Loves and you were mentioning Chicago, the Midway, because they're easier to get in and out. I would think that a passenger, and they're closer to downtown. And as a pilot, it's the same way. Like Atlanta, there's a lot of, it's the busiest airport in the world. So getting in and out of Atlanta could be really quick, or it could take a long. You could be number 40 in line. So I appreciate the smaller airports that are in the big cities. The options are nice.
Versus just being a small airport in a small city, like we talked about earlier. Twin Falls, Idaho, I'd never been to, and to find out that there's only 2 in flights and 2 out flights a day. It's like, okay. I don't know what you call them, but inbound, outbound.
It's funny. I don't interact with the passengers a lot, but the flight attendants do. And there are some routes we have into smaller airports, even though I fly a bigger airplane, that the flight attendants who kind of stay at a certain base and bid these same routes, they know the passengers. And so I guess there's probably a lot of comfort in that. But yeah, there's some definitely small operations, and it's a totally different experience.
I remember flying. I had to go into Bozeman, Montana. I had to fly into Seattle into SeaTac, and then take a prop plane. I don't know what they call them. There was a prop plane over to Bozeman, and I don't know if flying on it was a turboprop or whatever. It was a nice plane, but the wings are above you, like they're on top of the fuselage, so like you can see down. And we were flying over the Sierras right there, going from Seattle over to Bozeman, and the wind shears that come up, that plane was moving way more than I wanted it to be moving.
It is definitely, and the props would have nothing to do with that. Obviously, the C-130 was a big turboprop plane, but a smaller airplane. If you I just flew an empty airplane. We ferried an airplane out of Indianapolis back to Atlanta just a couple of mornings ago, like at 2 a.m. And it was very windy. There was a snowstorm coming through, and the plane was completely empty. and it bounced around like I was in a small turboprop or a small little airplane. I'm like, I like them when we're heavier. So the lighter the airplane, the smaller the airplane, you do feel
everything.
You do feel everything. It's definitely more comfortable for the passengers.
What's now I'll share with you my scariest story. What's the scariest story you've had as a pilot that you can share?
So first of all, people ask, that's probably the number one question, other than are you the pilot? Because they assume the female has to be the flight attendant. I get that even from internal employees, which I forgive all of you. But look, pay attention.
But come on.
But I know, right? But I appreciate them asking versus assuming. But I get asked that question. That's the next question I get asked the most is, are you ever scared, or what is your scariest moment? And the first thing I say back to passengers, if you ever talk to a pilot that says, yes, I'm scared flying, then you probably don't want to get on their airplane. So I don't think. I didn't say, I don't want you being scared, but what's the scariest moment? I've had scary moments in combat scenarios, obviously. Yeah. So that's happened. As far as passenger carrying, I can't really think of a time that's been scary. Yeah, things go wrong. Nothing major, nothing that we would consider major. Yeah. I haven't had any of those. Oh wow, let me tell you about a story. I've had really bad, unexpected turbulence. Which to the point where like I said, I flew down in Central South America, and the way where we were flying, we were in moderate, real moderate turbulence all the time. And there's moderate turbulence, and then there's chop. And we don't really encounter true moderate or severe turbulence in North America, really ever. It happens. You'll get pockets of bad air, moderate chop. And I've actually had a scenario in going into Indianapolis, again, ironically enough, that was severe turbulence. And that was the most uncomfortable ride I imagine any passengers I've ever had have been on. But I wouldn't say I was scared. It was just unexpected. And then we're so trained. We're like robots. We go through every scenario over and over. If something goes wrong, you really don't have any emotion in it until well after the fact. And then, we sit down and talk about it and debrief it and learn from it. I can't think of a time I've really been scared and or uncomfortable other than maybe that in passenger traveling. That's pretty boring, huh?
No, and I'll share you with mine was going into Portland, and it wasn't turbulence. I was on the left side of the plane. I always take window seats. So I'm just a visual person. I want to see around me. So I'm in the left side window. We're going west to east as we're landing in the airport, and it's windy. But it's like a steady wind. It's not like, anyways, we're coming in, and I don't know if you've ever flown into Portland, but you come in over the Columbia River.
Yep.
So I'm coming in, and I'm looking at the runway.
Through the side window.
Through the side window. And I'm like, this isn't right. Like, I'm literally looking at the runway. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, we're going down. And at that last minute, poof, just yanked it and straightened it out, and we landed perfectly. And it was like, holy shit. Because I'm like, we're coming down sideways. So that's called a crab.
There's a name for that. And it's funny. It's when you're like up at altitude, winds are coming at you never right off the nose or right off the tail. They're always from different angles. So you're kind of crabbing through the air always. But when you get closer to the ground, you can see it. And runways are aligned based on the natural wind flow in all throughout the country. That's why the runway numbers are different. So even last night, coming into Atlanta or this morning, we had like a 35, 40 knot crosswind-ish, and we were crabbing. So if you were a passenger last night, that would have been a scenario coming in here, and then the winds dropped off low to the ground, and then we kick out that crab is what it's called, to land straight. And the airplane is designed up until a degree to land in a little bit of a crab. The nose gear can handle that. But there are limits and all that. But yeah, it's more normal than you think. You were just paying attention.
and scared at the same time. I was like I said, I mean, everything, and I mean, turbulence was, just freaked me out. It's like, and then I've gone on YouTube and seen planes do that, and I'm like, all right, I guess that's
cool. There goes the mailman.
Male woman.
Male woman, or the FedEx man. Sorry, we'll stop there.
That's okay. But so everything was fine, but that was the freakiest moment I've had. I've had turbulence when I flew into New York. I was like in like right over Nebraska, and we hit some shearing and all, and people were bouncing, literally bouncing, and but I wasn't freaked out. But when I was coming down on that runway, I'll never forget that. So.
Yeah, the turbulence seems to be the one I get asked the most questions about. And you could hear the doors. We have a steel door in the flight deck now, but you could hear the passengers kind of screaming and oohing and awing sometimes in the back when it's real bad. Las Vegas can be a real uncomfortable ride with the winds and the heat and the mountains. But yeah, it's I've never been scared flying passengers, like truly scared. So, and I hope it stays that way. I don't want to be scared.
Yeah, no, and my wife, have a good flight. And like, it's totally out of my hands. Like, and she's like, don't you ever get worried? I go, never. I go, for one, there's literally nothing I can do about it. So I go, the pilots are all good. I'm in good hands. They'll get me where I need to go, and that's out of my control.
That's good. I appreciate the confidence. But yeah, no, at this stage in the career, I hope that it's so incredibly safe and predictable.
It better be, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
And you're not quite old enough to remember, but maybe I don't think you are. When they used to allow smoking on flights, and seatbelts were questionable, and I mean there are so many more rules now, and even post 9/11, there are more rules. I remember going to the airport pre 9/11. You'd go right up to the gate and wish people off,
Yeah, and I've heard they're doing a test bed of that somewhere else. They're going to start allowing passengers to go through security and go back up to the gate. I can't recall where that is, but there is somewhere there's some test bed airports that are going to start letting passengers go through security and go to the gate. So to start going back to the pre 9/11 where you're at the gate. But yeah, it's changed. It's crazy how much 9/11 alone. I was learning to fly when 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
So it's insane to me how far aviation or how much it's changed since then.
Yeah, I mean, just I look back at the old videos and like you see people show up at the airports and all that, and they're in business. Well, for one, most of the passengers were in suits or dresses because it was a big deal to go flying back then. And you didn't have to take your shoes off or your belts or it was just like it's just amazing. And people were smoking on the planes, and now they don't even have, but they used to still have the ashtrays in the armrest. And
yeah, we still have the no smoking signs in some of the airplanes. So yeah, my grandfather was a mechanic at Braniff. He did the upholstery of the airplanes. Nice. And so my mother would travel, and my aunts and uncles would travel as children, and they would talk about being dressed up, and it's changed. I saw a grown man get off in a onesie this past trip in Vegas. So traveling has totally changed. And it was a Christmas onesie, so he's in the spirit. But, yeah, I saw a grown man wearing a onesie. I don't think that would have happened in my grandfather's day.
No. It was a fedora and suit and tie clip. That's awesome. A onesie. That made my day.
It takes a lot of room in your suitcase, so.
Might as well wear it.
Right, absolutely.
But, boy, imagine doing the TSA if you got secondary at TSA. Whew.
That would be a lot of. Yeah, that'd be creative maneuvering.
Exactly. One thing I talk to a lot of business travelers about, and you being the ultimate business traveler, how do you balance work-life balance? I mean, you're on the road a lot.
So that's it's different for me than some of my coworkers that have children. At this stage, most people I work with, it's changing because the demographics, the age, people are getting younger, getting hired now since there's going into a shortage of pilots. Most people I work with have children that are grown. But I find that with me being single, I use the time on the road to catch up on sleep and rest and work out. I'm pretty active at home. I'm tennis and flag football and all these other silly things. But I find that that's where I get really good gym workouts in. So I kind of love the hotels that have good gyms, or there's a yoga studio or something close by, and it's my time to catch up on my sleep. The days are long and exhausting. Like when an average business traveler flies, they do one flight and then they're done. Then they go to their meetings and they walk around. For us, we're doing up and down all day. So your body wears your body out. The the pressurization and the dryness, everything. So for me, my work-life balance is I sleep when I'm on the road, I work out, I pay my bills. I kind of get everything I could get done that could fit in a backpack on the road. And when I come home, I'm completely off, and I use that time to socialize. It's challenging, though, because I can't commit to every Saturday or every Friday. I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule, but there's not a norm. I'm not off. I don't have – that's the number one question we get asked is, what's your set route? Well, there isn't a set route. You know, we go wherever the airplane goes. Yeah, and I'm with a large – you know, the largest North American carrier. So we go to a lot of places, and there is no norm. So I try to – my only norm is when I'm home, and I don't always know when that's going to be. But the balance is just when I am home, I'm very present. I try to, you know, kind of get everything I can get done on the road, rest, and make the most out of my time home.
How do you do you set your clock? I'm sorry, I'm just jumping because I have so many questions to ask the pilot. Do you set your clock? Like you're based in Atlanta, but then like you were in Los Angeles yesterday. Are you always on Atlanta time, or do you try to? How do you deal with that?
I'll put a plug in for the Apple Watch here. I love my Apple Watch on the road because it's so I have a lot of really cute Apple Watch bands to kind of spunk up the uniform since it's very boring. But I have in the Apple Watch, one of your settings is in the bottom or one of the corners. You could put a set time. So I have Atlanta time always there. And there are places we'll go to, like, you know, Albuquerque, or where I'm like, is this mountain time? Is this central time? So that always keeps it set. Now in the airplane, we use, you know, we use our Zulu time there. So we use a totally different time there. But yeah, I always have my time set to Atlanta. So I kind of think and communicate on East Coast time for my own sanity.
Yeah, I mean, I would think you'd have to, because I mean, you were in a couple different time zones yesterday.
I was, yeah. So and it's easy to get confused, and it is incredibly common for me to wake up and not know what city I'm in, to really stop and think, or to not know what hotel my room. You know, I never know where my hotel room is. So yeah, so I always kind of look at my watch, and then it, you know, the main time resets obviously to the phone, like a phone would. But I always know from the Apple Watch. So I love the smart watches for that reason for work.
I like that. Okay. Yeah, because I remember I flew into Nashville and then I drove over to Chattanooga, and it was 2 hours ahead going into Nashville, and then just by driving to Chattanooga, I crossed over another time zone, so I was on East Coast time in Chattanooga. And then I had to remember that when I came back, that my flight was going to be an hour different than you know what I mean? So I was like, oh.
Oh, there's been many a times where I've woken up an hour before the smartwatch days. I have been an hour off because people will get into hotel rooms. They'll do two things, and everybody listening that travels, stop doing this. They'll change the clock in the hotel room to whatever time they're on. Yeah. So if they're West Coast people, or they'll change it and add 15, 20 minutes, or they'll set a bunch of alarms and not turn them off when they leave the room. So there's a few things I do when I get into a room. I put the do not disturb sign on. I unplug the phone, and then I immediately go and look at the clock and make sure it makes sense and there's no alarm on. Because I have been woken up too many times from these random alarms or been way off on the time on the clock.
The other thing I do, and I just did this when I was in Vegas, and I was going to share it on my next podcast, which is you, is before I unpack, I make sure everything works. The sink, because there's nothing worse than unpacking and then going to the sink and realizing that the toilet doesn't work, or the sink, you know, there's no hot water, or because then you got to pack everything and go, oh, well, we'll switch rooms for you. And you're like, yeah, that's brilliant. Really?
I tell that's exactly what you should do. If you could get into your room, how many times do you go to your room and the key doesn't work?
Oh boy, in Vegas it's terrible. I mean, you're on the 28th floor, you know, down one of the hallways, and you're like, no.
Yes, and then everybody's in line because they were at the casino and lost their key and they need to get it rekeyed. Yeah, those are the traveling things that the people who don't travel, it just drives me insane when my key doesn't work. No, it's the first thing I do when I get to a room. I keep, and this is a safety thing, I keep my suitcase in the door to keep the door propped, so open. Okay. And I clear the room out to make sure there's no one hidden. And believe it or not, all these years in airline industries, I fly with people and everybody has a story. I have never had anyone in my room, but so many stories of people in their rooms, it is incredibly common to get into a room and someone be in there, not maliciously, but that room's already been assigned to someone.
Right.
So I open the door, make sure no one's hiding in the room, and then I put the do not disturb sign, unplug everything, and then I make sure the air conditioning works. And it doesn't. If it smells like smoke, I turn around and walk right back out. And then I shut the door, turn all the lights on, and shut the door. But the hiding in the room, the safety thing, that is, especially if you're in we don't stay in motels. We have pretty strict contract language. But I have stayed in motels where there's outside entrance. And we've had scenarios where crew members had people climb in through their windows, balconies, and so forth and so on. And I immediately latch the door. And if the door latch doesn't work, I put a piece of furniture, a chair or something in front of the door so no one walks in on me unexpectedly.
Yes, and you're right. That's all the things. I mean, our VP, who we were in Las Vegas, this was a couple of years ago, he was in his room, and people came in with a key, like another couple. And they had been assigned that room, and he was asleep. And he's like, "What the fuck you got? What are you doing in my room?" And they're like, "This is our room."
That happens it shocks me how much that happens. Where we'll be in the van the next morning, and one of the flight attendants, we have big crews, will be like, "Yeah, I walked in the room, and there was a pilot in there. There was a couple in there, and watching the news in his underwear." And it's like, that is just blows my mind how often that happens. So I think of multiple things. I don't want someone walking in on me running around half dressed or asleep. I don't need any new visitors in my bed.
I hear you. No, and that's I do the same. I wonder how. Maybe we're just neurotic. I don't know, but I do the same thing. I lock the door and put do not disturb because I don't want to be bothered, and I lock the door because I don't need any. Like you said, I'm a guy, and I don't need anybody showing my room, much less being a female.
Right. Yeah. So often than not, the locks don't work. So the furniture thing is something I've added a few years ago because there's been often you could tell when the lock doesn't seem to be working like it should. So yeah, the security is there's weird people out there.
Well, yeah, and there's more. I always like people always say California's got bad people. And I go, look, we've got everything. We just have more of them. We have more bad people. We have more good people. The state of California has more population than the country of Canada.
That's insane.
So
but I believe it. Yeah, California.
I go, if there are bad people in Canada, that means there are bad people in California. There's a lot of everything. So you'll find that out if you move here.
Yeah, I'm seriously thinking about it. I love California, and we have an opportunity to be out there in the LA area.
Well, all I can tell you is we have rain coming in next week, but tomorrow it's supposed to be 71 degrees. So. Yeah,
it's 45 where I am right now. So thanks. It makes it more encouraging every time. I was just out there yesterday. It was beautiful when I was out there.
Yeah, I was skating on the Strand yesterday while you were flying.
Nice.
I came back from that. I'm like, when I'm home. So like, I just spent 16 days in a hotel room. So the first thing I did was put shorts on. And my wife's like, it's in the 50s. And I'm like, hey, I've been wearing pants and cowboy boots for 2 weeks straight for 10, 12 hours a day. I'm wearing shorts.
Shorts and flip-flops. No, I don't. And see, that's hard. I don't do the long trips. I do not envy people. I mean, I do an average 3-day trip. And a 3-day trip of 10 to 12, 13-hour days in different hotel every night. I'm worn out. I don't know how people do 15, 16 days on the road.
There's a horse show in Columbus, Ohio called the Quarter Horse Congress. And I believe it's 22 days.
Oh, wow.
And they gave us, I did that show 1 year, and they gave us 1 day off. So,
wow.
So when I'm home, I have no guilt about, 3 o'clock in the afternoon going for a roller skate down the Strand. If it's sunny.
No, as you shouldn't. And that's how I am. When I'm home, I work to be at home. My work is not my identity anymore.
Exactly.
In the military, I cannot say that. But yeah, I work to be at home and enjoy my time home.
So what would be your advice to not just females, but anyone that wants to be a pilot? I mean,
well, I'll naturally migrate to the female advice, and a guy can take this and adapt it. But get a good mentor. I mean, that changed my life in aviation. I did not realize, and I started before we started recording, I shared this with you. I did not realize how much attention I would get as a woman pilot. And I think every woman pilot can say the same thing, or any minority, anyone that's not a white dude.
Yeah.
I did not realize how much I would stand out. And that was weird for me. Is I'm a outgoing person, I'm a people person, but I hate being the center of attention. And I did not adapt well to that at all. And I have my mentor is actually an older Black man. And early on in my career, he gave me some amazing advice on just humility and realizing that I am different. And it was great professionally to go, hey, you're going to have to work really, really hard sometimes to be seen as equal. Now, granted, things are changing. I've been flying over 20 years, but I still see that a lot. He didn't give me the advice that you're going to get a lot of unwanted attention because you're a woman, because he couldn't definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
So later in my aviation career, I've kind of migrated towards women that have experienced it and learned a lot. Every one of us have some crazy stories. And an analogy that one of them gave me that I love is the snow globe. You know, the snow globes you get at Christmas and you shake them up. She's like, I want my snow globe to sit on the counter and the snow to never fly. So I had the snow globe effect on the road as a woman to never let my snow globe shake. So I don't put myself, this is kind of not on the aviation, this is more the social part of the job. I don't put myself in a situation for my snow globe to shake. So I kind of always try to stay above board and not go down to the bar alone with a guy and all those silly things. Yeah. But as far as like the career path, I mean, it's hard work. It's a dedication. I have a friend that recently was like, I'm 52. I'm thinking about being a pilot. I'm like, you're too old, dude. One, I'm not as sharp and quick as I was when I was flying early in my Air Force career. Formation, a lot of information coming in close to another airplane. All that, there's, the multiple radios getting shot at. There's a reason they forced us out of the military and away from flying right around our 40-year age mark. And it's a dedication. You don't want to it's a great job. It pays well. It's a very comfortable job when you get to the airlines. I work on average 15 days a month. This month I'm working 6. So there's a lot as you get older in seniority or mature in seniority. It's a lot of perks to it. Yeah, union. But it also is like going to medical school, and getting the experience. It takes years to get to this level, and there's a lot of sacrifice. My entire 20s was a blur. I was traveling the world. It was great. I wouldn't change it for anything, but there was a sacrifice of, having a family, settling down, having, roots, places, your friends.
Normalcy.
Right, normalcy, if there is a such thing. But yeah, it's hard work. I don't recommend flying professionally for anyone who's not ready to do the commitment. When I took a physics test in high school, I would remember what I needed to remember to pass the test and brain dump it. You can't do that in aviation. You're constantly building and learning, and it's a commitment, and there is that inherent responsibility to other people. So it's a great career, though, and it's incredibly rewarding, and it affords me so much free time for me to do. I'm so involved with children and the community and sports and things that I love. So I do think it's great. And if I was married with children, I would have so much time. I would have more time than the average working professional would. So it's hard work, and it's a commitment.
I tell my wife the same thing. I go, when I'm gone, I'm gone. I'm Northern California. I'm in San Diego. Yeah. There's JoJo.
There's JoJo.
Fortunately, whenever I have to go to Hawaii for my work, she's always available for that trip.
That's true. I'll fly with guys whose wives will show up on our long Punta Canas every time. It's like, what about the long, El Paso, Texas? You don't want to come there?
Dickinson, North Dakota, she was busy.
Right. I don't understand it.
The big island of Hawaii, all of a sudden her schedule's wide open.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
But that
always happens that way.
But when I'm home, I go. Not many guys. When I'm not on the road, I work from home. It's not. I'm like today. I did orders. I process things. I'll do emails. I'll call people. But I'm home, so it's nice. I think it's just the balance. I could be if I was an office guy, I'd be gone Monday through Friday, probably from like 6 a.m. with LA traffic. I get home around 7 o'clock at night, and then I'd have the weekends. So I'd be home less.
And that just sounds like torture, doesn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. Horrific.
That's the thing, yeah. when I'm home, and I get so much free time. I couldn't imagine, and it's great. I imagine there's a lot of. It's probably be nice to come home every night and go to the gym at the same time and have dinner. So I mean, there's something for everybody out there.
It definitely takes, everyone's got their own thing. I don't besmirch people that sit in an office all day, and don't besmirch me sitting in traffic. I have to sit in traffic just to get out of LA. But man, once you're out of LA and you start driving through Central California, or if I'm in San Francisco and I'm working my way south, and I go, if I have the time, I'll go, I'll drive down the coast. And so I'll drive through Big Sur and all the different cities coming down, which is a tourist event for most people, and I'm just heading home. Or if I have to come down, I'll drive through Malibu just to avoid the 101 traffic. And
to see that it's beautiful. That's the one thing about aviation I say all the time. I wish everybody could see what I'm seeing. You just don't get the same view from the back. And I wish it was pre 9/11 where we could open the flight deck door and say, man, come look at this moonrise, or look at the sunset. I mean, it's just unbelievably beautiful, and that never gets old. That is one thing in aviation. I wish I could share that view that we get with everybody.
One thing that would be cool, and I'm going to make sure that you try and make this happen. Just kidding. Some of the bigger planes, like when I fly to Hawaii, or even like some of the bigger planes at Denver, they have that tracker. Because you have the TV screen,
right?
And it'd be cool if you had a webcam up in the front so we could see what you see.
Well, so the windows are heated in the airplane. This is one of those random things. It distorts it. So I have seen some pictures that are just amazing. And I go to take a picture, and it looks like a blurry. It just doesn't look right.
Yeah, and
there has to be a way to do it, but I have yet to find a pilot. I mean, this is a common thing. It's like, how do we capture this where it's not distorted? And I just have yet to find someone that could do it. And then the webcam, I think there's probably some regulations against that. I know it happens and it can happen.
No, I'm saying the not a pilot to do that, but I'm saying like the airline could have that set up, and if you're flying at night, you're going to see dark sky anyway. So I mean, that's whatever. But
the stuff we see at night is great too. I wish, like last night, the stars and the shooting stars and satellites. Sometimes you'll be up there and you're different. We're flying in a different layer of the atmosphere, but there's no way to capture it. I'm sure the airline has a way. They've done something. The views are amazing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome though. I'm so visual. Like, it always freaks me out when people are like, I'm driving home. When I fly to Denver, I can see Las Vegas. I'll see the Grand Canyon. I'll see Zion National Park. I'll see and I'm like, how do people not want to see that? It's like, they're just like reading their magazine. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I will say when I fly in the back, which happens, I don't do the window, and I do the aisle because I like to stretch and get up and move, and I have this eagerness to get out. I hate the feeling of being trapped over in the corner. So,
but you get to see those flights all the time.
Maybe that's why. Yeah. If I was at the window, I would definitely have the window open, looking out of it, though.
But I mean, you get to do that from the front, so.
Right. I guess to me, I'm a little desensitized, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's like people even like now. It's like people are like, oh my God, you get to go to Vegas. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm in my 50s. Vegas in my early 50s is not the same as Vegas in my early 20s, and going for a weekend was a lot more fun than working for 16 straight days. Right, exactly. No, Vegas. I'm in Vegas quite a bit with work, and I was there yesterday briefly in the airport. And even in the airport, I'm like, wow, I don't want to be here more than that. No offense, Vegas people, but it's just not my thing. Yeah, it's just different, and so it's just people are envious of me, and I'm like, whatever. It's the same deal. Right, exactly. I usually ask my guests when I'm done, what's the best way for people to reach out to them? But you're not a big social media person. I'm not. I had the LinkedIn where you and I connected, so I am on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. I'm not a huge social media. If it is, it's my dog or weird random things that no one cares to see about. But yeah, and if there's any young women or especially men that want to fly, I could talk about that all day and night. It is a great career. Or if there's any just random silly travel questions, I could answer some, like the best way to get healthy food in the airport,
for cheap.
Yeah. What do you consider healthy food?
Something that's not a piece of pizza or a hamburger.
Yeah.
So, I'm big on just eating, not starving myself. It's real easy. I mean, passengers know I need to eat at some point throughout the day, and I'm not going to eat those snacks on the airplane. That's a heart attack waiting to happen. And we do have strict regulations on our health. So there's little things like every airport has those nasty pizza places where you get pizza and strombolis. You could also just go and get like 2 meatballs with no sauce. And so that's just a protein source. And then like Starbucks has the oatmeal, and I always ask for the oatmeal with no water in it. That way I could add the hot water later on. So there's the yogurts. There's ways to get stuff that's less bad for you than other stuff, and it's not processed while you're in the airport.
Well, I know. I mean, that's a huge thing, because on this last trip, I took oatmeal with me, because at the hotel I got to stay in Vegas this time had a microwave and a refrigerator. So I'm like, we went to Whole Foods, we got some fruits and all the good stuff before, so we didn't have to go out every night and eat crap food. Yeah,
you get tired of eating out. That's the hard. People don't get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the airport, there's ways, and then Starbucks has those little egg white things. There's a Starbucks or
egg bites. Yeah.
Yeah, the egg bites. So there's ways to do it now, but my big thing is those silly little meatballs, because there's those nasty pizza places are in every airport, and just sometimes just a hit of protein on meatball. It's like $1.99, $2.99.
Yeah.
So there's my little hack for a quick bite of something.
And you said you didn't have anything to talk about out of town. You've given out more little tips and hacks than almost any of my guests prior.
Well, good. I hope it helps. I find it to be very boring, but yeah, that's what we do. We sit around in airplanes, the flight attendants and pilots, and talk about all the good stuff.
But as business travelers, I mean, when I go to Denver, let's see, the second week of January, I think the 5th through the 12th, I'll be in Denver for our sales meeting and then we have our market meeting. But it's 16. There's 16 sales reps throughout the country, and then we have our Canadian distribution comes down, and we sit around and do this kind of stuff. This is what we talk about. We're like, hey, if you ever fly here, what are you doing here? What do you know? That's kind of what, just like you and the pilots. It's interesting because a lot of the hotels we stay at, we'll see the attendants or pilots coming in because we're always near airports. So.
Yeah, and ask them. The flight attendants, man, they know everything because their income's a little different. And they're in all different stages of life. So between them, they could tell you every good deal, every happy hour, every neat thing to do. It just amazes me because every walk of life is a flight attendant, and they know everything. I have any questions, I ask the flight attendants. And there's a website out there somewhere about hiking. Like I know in Burbank, there's some hiking trails right there outside of the Burbank airport. So somewhere out there, I have just kind of learned them, but there is a way to look up and say, hey, where can I go get a quick hike close to the hotel? And you'd be amazed at some of the most random places where really great hikes are.
I have a buddy that he flies 3 weeks a month, and he was on my show, and he said he's a big beer drinker, craft beer, and so he has an app that will show him whatever. If he's in Chicago, he'll pull up the app and find a new craft beer place that he hasn't been to yet. And that's
brilliant.
That's what he does.
So I'm not going to put a plug in for alcohol as a pilot on the road.
No, please don't.
However, I will say that there's some places that have I guess THC, hemp, whatever in their beers now. So be careful for those of you who get drug tested out there for that. That has been one of the new warnings we're getting is these craft beer places will have THC in their beer. Yeah, so there's been a few failed drug tests because of that.
And they think they're just drinking a beer. Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be hard on my career. That would definitely give me some unwanted attention and challenges. So yeah, the craft beer. I may or may not know which beers are on draft at certain hotels when there's a really good beer choice.
Yeah, but there's like for me, I always find museums. Because whenever I go to different areas, there's always kind of cool museums around, whether it's a stagecoach place or, just weird stuff. My wife finally gave in.
Did she go to the stagecoach place with you? Or
Yeah, she has to. And now she's like, hey, you haven't taken me on a bad museum visit yet. So I'm like, all right. Because there's always something kind of cool where you go, I never knew that.
Yeah, we used to stay at a hotel that had, in the basement of the hotel, had old cars. It was some small hotel in the Midwest, and it had old cars in the basement. It was a museum. It was really, really cool. Totally unexpected. But yeah, there's stuff everywhere. There's something to do in every city, and there's always something entertaining to do.
You ever go into Louisville?
I lived in Louisville for 7 years. So
you ever do the bat tour?
I had done the bat tour. I've had a bat made, and the bat tour is awesome. There's actually a lot right there in Louisville. There's another museum, a science museum there.
The Muhammad Ali Museum's right there. It's awesome.
That's right. There's a lot to do in Louisville. We stay at the Brown Hotel right there, and that's in a great area right down the way there. And the Brown Hotel has a great bourbon sampling, from what I've heard.
Well, and then, I was there for the Farm Machinery Show and the NAIL, North American Livestock Expo. And then you get to Jeffersonville, and you go on the other side of the river, and you got the riverboat gambling. I forget the name of that. That's
Caesar. It's a Caesar property. It was at one time. Yeah, over there.
There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I flew an airplane in full. It was a charter airplane full of men, like all men. And I stopped the guys, and I was like, "Hey, what are y'all here for?" And they were there for the Porta-John convention.
The what?
It was like a Porta-John, like mobile little Porta-John toilets and septic tanks. It was like the septic Porta. There was a name for it. So yeah, Louisville has all kinds of things going on in it. That's the best thing in traveling is when I don't talk to the passengers a lot because they scare me. Not really, but that's the scariest thing is the passengers. But everybody's traveling for a different reason, and sometimes the stories are amazing. I just carry 2 Medal of Honor winners, and to sit down and talk to them is just like a treat. So I encourage people not to bug the person in the seat next to them, but if there's time and the opportunity presents itself, it's always interesting to hear someone else's story. Because every walk of life travels.
That's my podcast in a bubble. I always tell people I want it to be like if I sat down next to you and I said, "Hey, so what do you do for a living?" And you go, "Oh, I'm an airline pilot." I go, "Oh shit, I've always wanted to." Hey, what And that's kind of where, because I've done the same thing. I've sat down next to some really crazy story people. One guy was a trust. He goes, "I'm a trust fund baby." He goes, "I've never had a job. My parents died at a young age and left me a lot of money." He goes, "I try and do smart business, but basically I'm a professional gambler right now." I'm like, "Excuse me?"
Wow.
and this was we were coming back from I think Houston, and so I had a 2.5 hour flight or whatever with him, and he was I won't tell the celebrities he was coming to stay with, but he was just like, "Yeah, I'm going to come hang out with my friends, and they're I gamble and I met them, and so now I'm hanging out at their house, and he goes I've been blessed." He goes, "I was unfortunate to lose my parents, but I was fortunate that they left me money where I don't have to have a job and left me with some money, and I get to have fun now." I'm like, "Well, at least you admit it." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'm like, this is like, I would never meet that guy,
Right.
Like,
no, there's people, you would never talk to that it's an airplane that holds about 150-ish people, give or take a little bit, the average mainline jet flying out there, everybody on there has a different story. It's amazing how many different stories I meet and how people from all walks of life come together and you could hear people talking. I love being a passenger and listening to other people's conversations.
Yeah.
But it also, there was a flight attendant. We've all had the flight attendants that have been a little impatient. And I heard an elderly woman tell the flight attendant in the most compassionate way that she was traveling with her 2 friends that were taking a long time because they were fighting terminal cancer, and they had just come from MD Anderson and having treatment infusions, and they were sick. And to see sometimes even us in the industry that do it for a living, to have that reminder that everybody is doing something different, great things, scary things, and some people are just turds. But sometimes you want to. It's like maybe you're the unturdish thing in their life, right?
Yeah. Well, and I know from personal experience that if family or friends have passed away or are sick, you're their conduit to get them to that person, and they're so focused on what they got to deal with when they get there, that maybe they're not thinking about all the etiquettes of airline flight.
Yeah, some people just don't know. So it's business travelers and airline employees, sometimes we overlook that the most.
Yeah.
And I try to, even when I'm doing the walking around on the outside of the airplane, my grandmother meant the world to me, and she has since passed, but she was my rock. And I always stop and think, man, grandgrandma's on every flight. And that's one of those, for me, that's my little personal thing to kind of get me in that work mode, because we start out our trips doing that, to say, hey, there is someone's grandgrandma on here, and I want to make sure it's safe, but also treat everybody as if there's something going on. And that's hard. We all get impatient in this job and working with the public. But, yeah, even as your fellow passenger, there's people next to you. You just don't know what's going on with them.
I know. I mean, my dad passed away 3 months ago, and so flying to Phoenix to go deal with all that, I wasn't. And I'm a regular business traveler, but I was still. I'm like, holy shit! I don't remember getting on the plane.
It's a blur, yeah. The same way when I flew the day I flew my grandmother, and I don't remember one thing about the flight home.
Yeah, exactly.
To go take care of her. Yeah, so. That's the plug I have. Be nice to your fellow passenger. I know it's hard. Believe me, I've been very impatient. Be nice to your fellow
especially through the holiday season, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had a plane yesterday where not one single person was at their first flight. For whatever reason, the flight attendant asked them. And the plane after that, like 20 people were going on their first flight over.
Wow.
Yeah, it tells you everybody's traveling.
They always ask when I fly to Hawaii, they're like, whose first trip to Hawaii is this? And people raise their hand like, really? Because I guess it would freak them out. 6 hours over the ocean, It's like.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people. I mean, people who've never left don't have a passport. It just blows my mind. But I guess it's great that they have the opportunity now to get places affordably.
Yeah, totally different. So, well, hey, I'm gonna not soak up any more of your time. I've killed much more than I expected, but I was overly excited to talk to a pilot.
Thanks. I hope it was good. Let me know if you have any more questions. Sorry if it was boring.
Well, for one, for a fact it was anything but boring. So it
good. I hope it helped.
It was awesome. And maybe if something comes up, we could do a follow-up or something like that. So
absolutely, yeah. If you have any other questions, I'm sure there's a million things that I didn't even think to cover, because I get asked so many crazy questions that I never think. So let me know.
Thanks, Danielle.
Bye.
Bye-bye.